understand what's happening, how best you can do it, because there's never one.
Use that opportunity to grow your soft skills and your presentation skills. We also have key competitions that are normally held from one point to the other. AAEA is the Association of Kenya Insurers. They normally invite people, including students, to sort of present ideas and maybe like products, and we have a panel who normally give feedback, and I think those are some of the good opportunities that you can take advantage of. Then there's mentorship. I don't know whether it has been mentioned on the actuarial Academy of East Africa is a good opportunity for you guys to sort of get a mentor to sort of work with you and help you in terms of how you can prepare better for job opportunities, how you can prepare your CV, and what will give you an edge or an advantage over other candidates. Yeah, so I think, and we also have the task talks. The Actuarial Society of Kenya also holds once in a while. They normally have industry talks. It will be good to also come and listen to that, and also make a presentation. And also, as my fellow panelists mentioned, around debate clubs, those are excellent opportunities for you to practice in terms of how to present and how to defend your cases. And yeah, I think that those are some of the ideas that come to mind.
Thank you. I think being proactive is what comes very clearly through from you all there around taking the initiative yourself, thinking about those opportunities where you can get exposure to other actuaries. So something I always talk to students about is, what are you doing to go and learn about from other people working in the profession? You know, whether that's following people on LinkedIn, reaching out to people on LinkedIn to ask some questions. You know, what's the worst that can happen is they don't answer, but actually they might answer. They might give you some nugget of insight into what they're doing or what they're focused on. But I think, you know, a big part of what I'm hearing from all the panel is, you know, being proactive in your research, finding out around different parts of the profession, different practice areas, and thinking about how you can relay that passion, commitment, drive, and supplementing with all those the skills that the panel have talked about. Now, we're all human. We don't always get it right, you know, and I've certainly made some, you know, interesting decisions around my career and things I probably could have done better or done differently in helping shape my path, but I don't believe in, you know, every decision is a decision I made for a reason. But looking back at your pathways through to where you've got to now, are there things that you would do differently, or are there things that you would change, or things that you would suggest people focus on based on your own journey through your career? I don't know if you want to start first, Norman.
Yeah, so once upon a time, I was also seated where you are, and I think you have such an excellent opportunity to learn from the mistakes that you have made and not repeat the same. So if I was to go back to my younger self, number one, the first and foremost thing I would do would be what Norman mentioned: try and get most of the exams done when you're in campus. When you start working, there's very limited time to sort of study, and also balance that with other priorities, like you want to start a family, you want to, there's a lot of time spent at work, so definitely get an edge by passing most of the exams if you can when you're still in campus. And I want to re-emphasize on the issue around mentorship. I would get a mentor, basically someone to give me the bigger picture, basically, what is expected of me. And I think an important question was asked around the practice areas, like how will I choose the area to practice? Is it in life insurance? Is it in general insurance? I think those are some of the good discussions you can sort of have with a mentor, and they can give you insights of what happens in each and every area of practice. And you can be like, maybe it will be more interesting to go into banking, or it will be more interesting for me to go into life insurance. So definitely get a mentor, and the Actuarial Academy is there to sort of help you in terms of that. And also maybe in terms of being proactive, learn some of the skill set, get some of the things that you can learn, like the programming languages. There's a lot of demand for automation of tasks, as has been mentioned. Right now we are dealing with very huge sets of data. So then it gives you an edge if you have some skills around data manipulation, how to summarize data, how to tell a story, how to present, those kind of things. So yeah, be proactive, not just get good grades. It's very important, but also try and go above and beyond. And again, just to also again reiterate the importance of being able to communicate technical concepts to non-technical audience, being able to break down very technical matters in simple language, and you're able to pass your message across.
Mine will be a bit different because I am not an actuary. But what would I do differently given an opportunity? I think I will answer that question by telling you what made a difference in my career. So I'll give you a story. I met this gentleman, and that was immediately after I was done with my diploma. So he asked me, so what are you doing after this? And I told him, okay, I will be joining the university, and I look forward to continuing learning. So he asked me, so after learning, what else, or what do you want to do? So as blank as I was, I told him my main goal at the moment is to just pass the exams, and that was what was important to me at that point in time. But he asked me a very simple question that, James, apart from passing these exams, what else do you think will propel you towards being a good HR practitioner? And then I told him, okay, I need to pass my professional papers, I need to pass my CHRP, I need to practice all that and all that. So he gave me a task of noting down each and everything that I do every single day and sending it to him. Through that, I learned how to track my time. Through that, I learned something we call time management. I learned that I don't just wake up and all I can think about is just reading and reading and reading. Because there's a day he asked me, apart from reading, apart from studies, what else do you do? So that pushed me towards finding something out of the norm, which is just reading, to do. So I ended up volunteering, engaging myself in more social activities where we could go out, help the community, volunteer in children's home. And by that, it pushed me, and I now started becoming more aware of the challenges facing the society. This man made me appreciate that as a professional, people still expect you to give them solutions, even some of which are out of your profession. So this is my advice to you, because if I would have known that earlier, then I would have started practicing it earlier, and I would have learned many things earlier. This is the right age to try, because it is through trying that you can know what you are good at and what you need to improve on. And allow me to say this statement that at this age, you are allowed to make some mistakes, because at our age, there are some mistakes when you make, then it's fatal. Even career-wise, it's fatal. We call them career suicide, right? So try as much as you can, but whatever you're trying, make sure you have an objective. The objective should be Is it propelling you towards leadership, or is it making you a better technocrat? Because with those two, then you can be a holistic leader. So what I would have done differently is to volunteer more, learn as much as I could, because by then there are some mistakes I could have made and they could have been okay. But right now, there are some mistakes that I cannot afford to do. So try and learn as much as you can, and just showcase what you are good at, because through that is the only way you can be able to understand what you can and what you need to improve on.
Sorry, I think, okay, first of all, any regrets? Okay, maybe the only regret I'd say is not taking my Pythons and R programming seriously. Not seriously, but I was not really interested. As Norman said, I think as when you are doing these exams, it was just more of passing, as in doing the exams. And then you see at that time the IFoA had not changed the syllabus, so they had not incorporated some of these programming languages. So I think for us it was more theoretical than the practical side of actuarial. But in terms of my career, I've enjoyed the ride. I think, just to give you a brief, I started in IT. I worked for a company called Tanzania Africa. It was a software solution provider. It was more of deep sea, because basically you had to understand a whole software. You had to understand the front end, the back end, and present it to clients. And that time you're presenting to a board, you're presenting to the CEO. And through that, I got the opportunity to travel. Given that it was a Pan-African company, I traveled in West Africa, lived in Lagos, lived in Accra, just doing that work. So it opened doors for me. Then, luckily, I got the scholarship. I think most of you are aware of the IRA scholarship that takes people to Bayes Business School in London. So when I went there, came back, worked for the regulator for 1 year, and I got the regulatory experience. Before now, I did consulting, a short stint at consulting, and then joined Jubilee. So I think, what am I getting at? It's just basically being able to adapt. In this life, the only thing that is constant is change. And I think that that statement is it's very obvious. So if you're those people who are rigid, like if I had gotten that opportunity to do IT, I would have said, no, I'm an actuary. I want to be an actuary. So if there is no job, there is no actuarial job, then I'll wait for Mukami to hire me at that time. But I was like, whatever came is what you take. So being able to adapt, being able to learn is one thing I'd say is quite, in life, not even your career, in life, you need to be able to adapt to any change that comes. And I think that's the biggest advice that I'd give you. And maybe in conclusion, I'd like to end, given that I'm a mathematician, I'd like to end with Bayes' theorem that says, in simple terms, that it's a rule basically that updates a belief given evidence, or given the evidence that you've been able to get. So basically, it just describes the act of learning. Because right now, you've listened to us, what are you going to change in your life, in your career? How are you going to adapt? So if there's any takeaway from this is, the only thing that is constant is change. Learn to adapt, and always rule number one, Bayes' theorem. Yeah, so as actuaries, I think that's what I can say. Not even actuaries, but students in general. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thank you, panel. I think adapting, learning to adapt, being flexible, thinking about your path, I think all comes through very clearly. I want to make sure we've got time for questions. If anyone's okay, we'll move on to questions from the audience. Yep. You know the drill by now. We've got another mentee. So 31757359 for questions to the panel. Just give you a couple of minutes to pop your questions in. Here's a great question. How do you take care of your mental health while trying to balance everything in the qualification journey? Great question. Anyone want to share how they ensure that they're looking after their health and well-being? I mean, it's really important about balance, right? In terms of studying hard, but also making sure you're making time for your own health. Anyone? Any thoughts?
Okay, I'll start, given that I've undergone the whole journey. In terms of mental health, I think I usually say it's good to take breaks in between. I think it took me 10 years to qualify. No, I think 9 years or 10 years, yeah, about to qualify. And trust me, it was hard. If these exams can humble you, even if you're a top student from, I went to Alliance, it will still humble you. Yes, so it's good to be able to take a step back and reflect, especially when you fail. There is a whole psychology that goes through that. But I think for me what worked is I had a study partner the whole time. So even if we'd fail, we'll just encourage each other. And yeah, like I remember results used to come out on Thursday. We mourn the whole weekend. Monday, we are in chapter 1. We have already mourned. So it's good to, yes, acknowledge that, yes, it's a failure. But also, as I said, soldier on. So I usually say have that mourning period where if you failed, yes, mourn, but remember that's not the end of the goal. In terms of mental health, you can talk to someone. I know right now therapy is really or counseling. I don't know if UN offers counseling sessions. I know other universities have it. I know DASTA has like a whole guidance and counseling department. But it's also good to talk to your friends. If you have like a colleague or someone you can confide in, it's good to air out. I know that normally comes naturally with ladies. With guys, it's a dainty task. Maybe I'll allow the guys to address you because they're the ones who can be able to, maybe they understand it well. But it's good to talk to someone and then also take a break. If you can do something, whether you enjoy, I don't know, playing tennis or something, it's good to have that recreational activity. I remember when I had just taken a break from doing the exams. I think I took a 1 year hiatus. And I was just talking to some lady who had already qualified. And she was telling me like she had a friend who kept on postponing things in life, waiting to qualify. So I think he was like, I'm not going to get married until he qualified. He sat, I don't know, did exams, kept on, maybe some he passed, some he failed, until the girlfriend was like, now you need to marry. Clearly, you're wasting my time. So they got married. Then he was like, I won't start a family until I qualify. I don't know if he has a family, because back then he had not yet qualified. Maybe right now he's qualified. But you see, if you wait to do things, as Stephen said, there's other things in life other than this actuarial, and you need to be able to balance in this life. So it's also good to take a breather and don't let this get into your head. It's a long journey, but it's a rewarding journey. So always cheer yourself up, even if it's watching motivational quotes or anything. It's good. It motivates and uplifts your spirit to just soldier on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe just to add on to that. So yeah. So basically, sometimes it's good to also chill a bit. Just focus on progress than perfection. Basically, life is not linear. Sometimes you plan for things and they don't happen exactly as you wanted them to. So just try and focus on making progress. Sometimes you might do 2 papers, fail 1, but at least you got 1, and that's progress. And also just try and have a balanced life. Get some workout done, hang out with your friends. At the end of the day, we are still human beings and we are social beings. It's good to interact, and yeah, so it also helps to talk to people and and learn maybe from them, and that can help you maybe in terms of some of the mistakes you're making if it feels like you're a bit pressurized to get some things done. So yeah, definitely does help. And there's a lot of help out there in terms of therapy as mentioned and counseling. Yeah, so those ones also go a long way.
Great, thank you. Question for you. What are you looking for when you're choosing internships, students? What kind of attributes are you looking for?
So, for an internship position, when you're coming to work at Britam, one of the things that I'm looking for is that you're willing to learn. That is the only thing I'm looking for. You may not be the best communicator. I get you're just right from campus. I was still in a similar situation. What I'm really looking for is one, do you have the willingness to learn? Number two, are you willing to pursue IFoA or these exams, whichever the case, not only just IFoA, but even SOA. So are you willing to pursue these exams? Then again, for an internship opportunity, is there an opportunity in our company? So there are some situations whereby there are indeed no opportunities at that particular point in time. So when you send your CV or your letter for internship, it might be a no, not because you are not qualified, but because at that particular point, there is no that opportunity. But those opportunities exist, yes.
Great, thank you. James, there's one specifically for you here. If I wanted to volunteer in my current state as a student, in what department would I best fit to ensure I get maximum exposure to the actuarial field? If I wanted to volunteer in my current state as a student, in what department would I best fit to ensure that I had most exposure to the actuarial field?
That's a good question. And you see, for me, first of all, the question is, why are you, the why is normally very important because it helps you understand the reason as to why you're doing what you're doing. So in the first place, you want to volunteer so that in the end, you can be a good, I didn't get the last part, but so once you volunteer, then you can be?
To get the most exposure to the actuarial field.
Okay, so in simple terms, you need to be in a space that allows you to be a critical thinker. Because I'll still go back to what I said. In the actuarial field, you provide solutions. And these solutions, they don't have a one best way. So as you give out yourself to volunteer, you must know in this department, will it allow me to handle projects that can allow me to be able to analyze data, and will this data be able to give me a chance to come up with models? So in the long run, don't just volunteer because you are volunteering and that's the only opportunity that is there. So you need to be a little bit strategic. There needs to be you need to be intentional with what you do. So if you are coming, for example, into a company, Zamara, to volunteer, ensure that your volunteer is within the actuarial department, because within that department you will meet some of our leaders, some of our staff who have been there, they have tried it and it has worked for them. And through that, you will be able to get that first-hand experience, because in the end, it is that experience that when you apply for a job, that is what most of the time a recruiter will look for. Where have you been before? What have you been doing? So if, for example, and I like what she said, she was involved, she was in an IT company, and she needed to understand the softwares. She needed to go and pitch for the business leaders so that they can be able to market this, because in the end, what was she doing? She was giving solutions, right? So you must position yourself. There must be a lot of intentionality, right? Don't just volunteer, but ask yourself, out of this volunteer work, what skill, it still takes us to the skill, what skill am I perfecting? Because I was reading an article from FK, and we have a gap of 42% in critical thinkers, right? So in the end, if you can better that one skill, because you will need it as an actuary, then why not give it a shot? Thank you.
Great. I think we've run out of time for questions now. There's lots on the chat that we'll try and make sure that we get answered. And are you sticking around a little bit after this session for students to talk to you potentially? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I just have one thing to add that maybe we have not all mentioned is it's also good to create a good social network. Maybe as here, I think I've just alluded to what he was saying, Toby was saying, but it's good to have a good social network. And at this point is where you create it, because I'd give you from my experience. I think how many of you know Professor Weke? I know if you're in School of Maths, you know Professor Weke. So through him, I was able to get an internship opportunity at Kenindia. Through him, he's the one who, I didn't know I didn't even know if there's a company called Tanzania Africa. But he was just like, send me your CVs, because he sits on so many boards, and these people always are looking for opportunities. They're looking for people to do internship, people to fill in some job vacancies. So it's also good to create that social network. I usually say, have a good social capital. So start right now, go to LinkedIn, create as many network as you can, because those are the people who, people usually say they love working with the people they know. And that's one thing I have seen in my over 30 years of career experience. But anyway, yeah, so it's important. It's important to have that social capital. I think that's one thing we didn't mention, but it is key. Yeah.
Brilliant. I think that's a great thing to end on. I think we've heard some really great insights from the panel around proactiveness, taking the initiative, thinking about your communication, your professional skills, and how you can stand out in when it comes to applying for those graduate roles. Self-awareness, doing your research, taking every opportunity as you can, and building that social capital, I think is a great insight from our panel. So just to say a huge thank you to you all for taking the time and sharing your insights with us today. We just have a small token of thanks for you. As I said, I recognise there are lots more questions, but we will make sure they get answered and we'll share those back with you. Okay, we're moving on to our next session now, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome Harpreet Virdi to the stage, who's going to share her story and her career around working beyond the traditional fields.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can all hear me well. I'm one of the quiet ones that James mentioned. So anyway, I'm here today to speak about actuarial science in a non-traditional field. In my case, that would be banking and risk management in banking. So my name is Harpreet Virdi, and I work as a risk quantification manager at ABSA Bank, Kenya. So I'll just take about 10 minutes to go through my journey. And I'll just start off by saying, as an actuary, we make financial sense of the future. And the definition is just as wide as it sounds. I'm sure you've heard all the speakers say a lot of things about the various specializations you can do. And in my case, my story panned out as follows. So it was basically centered around risk management. And my passion from risk management grew from starting off as an operational risk consultant at a company called Protect Africa. It was based in Australia, and it had a branch here as well. So I also studied here in the University of Nairobi, and I'm not sure if this is still the case, but I know we used to graduate in August, so I graduated in August and was very fortunate to land a job within 1.5 months. I know it's not easy, but I was fortunate in that manner. And I worked as an operational risk consultant. We set up an operational risk system. Again, not a very quantitative field, but it was a great start for me. From there, I moved into banking. And I joined the risk department in I&M Bank. So I joined market risk, and it was a budding department. It was we were still setting up things. And you can imagine that was a great learning curve for me. So early in your career, if you get such an opportunity, it's great. And because there was a lot of things to manage, we also used to look at asset liability management as well. And again, I'd say I was lucky because at some point, very early in my career still, I was seconded to I&M Tanzania as the acting CRO at that time. It was like literally being thrown into the deep end because, for example, things like compliance was something very new for me, something I'd never done before, but I had to learn it on the go. So again, great learning curve there, a lot of opportunities to, present to the board, things I'd never done before, be part of the senior management, get their thoughts and ideas and learn from them. And then when I came back to Kenya, I joined the Treasury project team, basically upgrading the system, the Treasury system. I know this sounds like something unrelated to risk, but it really wasn't, because if you think about it, to manage risks, you need to actually learn what somebody does on the ground. You need to know what the business does, and that's exactly what that opportunity did for me. So I was there for about 5 years, and then I moved to KCB. There, my role was very specific. It was market risk specific. All the risks that go along with market risk, like liquidity risk, interest rate risk, FX risk, capital management, that's what I focused on. And then from there on, I joined ABSA, which is where I am now, as a risk quantification manager. And here I look at enterprise risk management as a whole, specifically scenario analysis and stress testing. So I'd say that's my niche here. So as you can tell, I've just been in risk through and through. So I tell people, please don't call me a banker, call me a risk manager. And again, risk is very wide. Just as we said, actuarial is very wide. Risk is also very wide. So I just want to go through some of the opportunities or the learnings I got from being in this field. So I'll just start off with the part where I was an operational risk consultant. Again, I was very wary about the role. I said, I've done so much maths in my life. Why am I looking at such a non-quantitative risk type? But then as I got into the role, I was able to learn one or two things about operational risk and realize that we still have to do a lot of quantification in terms of we still have to score risks, for example, to the risk and control self-assessment exercise. We're looking at forward-looking information such that we can set key risk indicators and control indicators that'll give us an early indication of where there might be risks coming up in the future, or control failures that could occur. All that is very forward-looking. Capital quantification for operational risk, it gave me a chance to, I'd say not implement it, but research a lot about it. And then definitely all the data you gather from this analysis, you need to report on it, create some sort of dashboards, give it some meaning so that your stakeholders can make decisions. So I made that my niche. Like in the system, I focused on the analytics aspect of it. And then as a banker, so as much as I tell people don't call me a banker, they still do. And I'm just going to go with that for now. But credit risk is really big in banking. It's the biggest risk type, I'd say. And of course, I'm sure you've all heard about how people get their loans, companies get their loans. We do a lot of financial ratio analysis, look at individual customers and their willingness to pay, etc. We look at the industry and sector analysis and see where we want to venture into or not. And we also, and this one I think is big for the actuarial field, because when I got into it, I realized I can actually apply a lot of my skills. So IFRS 9 modeling, I know someone mentioned IFRS 17. So IFRS 9 in this case would be using forward-looking information to feed the impairments and provisions models. There's a lot of input we can have as actuaries into that. And then my personal favorite, market risk, just because I've been in that space for quite a while now. You look at interest rate risk, both in the banking book and the trading book. So the banking book could be assets and liabilities as a whole, and then the trading book would be, say, your investment portfolio, and maybe how changes in interest rates would impact your portfolio. Of course, pricing and value at risk models, which you've probably read about somewhere. The next point there on treasury, middle office, and market risk setup, very specific to me, as I already mentioned, learning about what is done on the ground and improving your skills. And it also helped me automate some of the reports I used to do manually on Excel through this system. And then, of course, in risk management, risk and return analysis is key. The point of doing risk management is that you need to see the impact on your bottom line, the impact on your P&L and your capital. Another big risk type in banking is liquidity risk. Remember, as a bank, you're taking short-term liabilities, so on-demand deposits and term deposits, and you're turning them into assets. So you're turning them into long-term assets, and you need to ensure that continuity in terms of you have the necessary funding over time to carry that process on. So in that way, liquidity risk also somewhat falls under market risk in a lot of the banks. And then I'll speak to now what my role currently is on, which is enterprise-wide risk. I find this very interesting because every day I'm learning something new. So for example, when you talk about the first point there, macroeconomic factor analysis and the link to internal metrics. So as an example, I would look at the interest rate trends in the market and try to link that to maybe the non-performing loans. Like, is there something we can gauge from that, and what can we do better, or how can we improve on our decision making based on what we've seen in the past? And then, of course, stress testing and scenario analysis. That's like my day-to-day job in a way. And the good thing with it is that as much as I do the stress testing on the risk types that we already know, credit risk, market risk, ops risk, whatever I already talked about, there's also a big move into other risk types, like climate risk, which I'm sure you've heard mentioned today again. The central bank is quite big on starting off stress testing for climate risk. So that's also a learning curve for me right now. And then other than that, obviously there's capital impact analysis through ICAP, which is the capital adequacy process, very similar to what we do in solvency, Pillar 1 and Pillar 2. But this is now the Basel version of it. And then just to wrap up this slide, all of this that we do in risk management, there's a bigger picture to it. And one is definitely informed reporting to stakeholders to make decisions, right? I've written here document 3 times because I really believe in documentation. Everybody who spoke before me spoke about communication, and it is key. Even through the exams, the communications exam, the modeling exam paper 2, it's all about documentation. And as much as sometimes we don't like it, I think it's really key. And then of course compliance. The regulators are very big on risk management. We don't do it to tick a checkbox, but definitely we do need to meet the regulatory requirements. And then finally the setting of risk appetite. All the risk types and the risk management we do on those risk types has the end goal of setting an appetite. How much risk are we willing to take up as a bank? What are we willing not to take up as a bank? And then I just want to wrap it up by saying that, so I heard various speakers, or at least 2 people today, say that it took them 10 years to do the exams, I think, and complete them. I think it's going to take me much longer. I took, I'd say, a 5 to 6 year gap in between, and that's what happens. If you don't end up in an insurance or pensions background where you have the support to do exams, you tend to switch to something else. You tend to switch to FRM, you tend to switch to CFA, and I also switched in a way. I went and did my MBA at some point, and then I did ACI, which is a treasury exam. But all in all, in the end, I still went back to the to the actuarial exams. I just did the banking exam in October. I literally do 1 exam a year, but I'm making progress towards completing qualification. And the reason is because I feel it's so relevant to me. I've seen how the IFoA have made strides to, be more relevant in the field, have something on data science, have something on AI. Banking is very new. I think it's only 3 years old. So that's why I chose to go back. And don't think that the IFoA paid me to say this. This is my own opinion, but that's what I think. And of course, the whole qualification has a lot of scope worldwide. Yeah, it's well known, and you've already heard that from the previous speaker, so I don't need to say much more on that. I think that's it from me. Thank you so much for your time, and if you need to reach out to me for questions or anything, I'll be around for a while, and that's my email on the screen. Thank you so much.
There we are. So we've put up the Mentimeter code, so please, again, put that in and ask any questions. And if she's unable to answer all of the questions this time, because we can only take a few questions, we will work with her to get the answers to you.
Last one while we're waiting to fill the silence. What would your advice be to someone who's thinking of following a similar career path? What would you recommend them to do in order to help and prepare them for that?
Okay, sure. That's a good question. Again, I think somebody's already said this before, but I would definitely start on the exams early. I actually did. I think by the time I was graduating, I'd done 2 exams. And then once you start working, it just gets more and more difficult, or life responsibilities come up. So that's a big one for me. I wish I had done a lot more earlier. But other than that, when I started off, I wanted to do the investment specialization, because at that point, there were no banking exams. But honestly, the banking exams, after having done just the first one in October, it is so relevant to the field. I feel like even though I've worked in banking for, say now, 8 years, right? The knowledge I got from the exam was immense. So as you go along the path, you kind of find your way. I wanted to do investment, but now because of working in banking, I switched and I said I'm going to do banking, and of course the SERA qualification. So just try and set out your path as you go along, but start early.
Great, thank you. We have one here. As a risk manager, what are the constant challenges you get while doing your work?
All right, so there are quite a few. There are quite a few challenges along the way. One of them is being requested for like on-demand reports or information, and you kind of have to. And I think this is big, especially in the emerging markets, is that you have to look for the data to back those reports. And in a lot of cases, the data may not be readily available, or you don't have a large database to work with. So you have to sort of look for external data to feed into your analysis, as well as, so I find myself going onto so many websites, trying to look for all the data, the macroeconomic factors I need, etc., and trying to just beef up what I have. And then at the same time, as much as I do come up with the end goal or the report, I still have to come in there and make a disclaimer as to the data issues that I had. I think that's a really big one for me.
Great, thank you. Another really good question here around how is actuarial science applicable in the investment banking sector in reference to stocks and bonds? Sorry. How is actuarial science applicable in the investment banking sector in reference to stocks and bonds?
Okay, so I've not really worked in the investment banking bit of it, but having worked in Treasury, I've dealt with bonds a lot. In fact, I feel like I have all the formulas at the top of my head at any point in time. To do with stocks, I haven't done much, to be honest, but I have seen, I have worked with my colleagues in investment banking as well, and definitely just because you have the mathematical background and quantification skills required, once you're able to apply to one set of investment portfolios, I think it's very easy to apply that knowledge to another set. So you probably know that in banks, we don't really, as a bank, we don't invest in stocks, we invest in bonds. But once you have that knowledge of how you're valuing bonds, etc., it's very easy to apply that knowledge to stocks, in my opinion.
Great. And then one last question. You touched on it, but what actually pushed you back into doing actuarial papers after a long journey doing other successful areas?
As I went through the journey initially of doing exams, like everybody else, I had my fails, and it really upset me. But obviously, you just have to go and pick yourself up. And I think what happened, why I took a break, is because I found myself doing a lot of things. I was working, and then I started doing my MBA. When I started doing my MBA, I was doing CP1 at the same time, and CP1 is difficult. So I failed CP1, and I was really struggling to juggle with work and MBA at the same time, doing my assignments, etc. So I think that's why I broke off in the first place. But then, as I went along the way, I realized that even though I failed those exams, there was so much knowledge I gained from them, and I was still able to apply it. Even if I didn't have the paper under my name, I had the knowledge behind it. So I just wanted to ensure that I carried on doing that. That was the main thing for me.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing your insights.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now we are on to our next session. So may I introduce Mukami Njeru, who you probably know as on the council for TASS and also with the AAEA, and she's also on the IFoA council. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the quiz. Quiz. Yeah. Let me just get. There we are.
Do you want to run? Yeah. Yeah. I'll get this quiz set up and then I'll.
No, did you want us to run it or do you want to run it?
No, guys, I'm only doing this because it's the last session of the day. And we need to do 20 minutes worth of professionalism, PPD. And I also thought, to be honest, given what I've seen on stage and all the great sessions and talks, I think we have learned so much about professionalism, what it means to be an actuary. And yeah, I just wanted to get ahead of those lessons, ahead of boring you through slides about what it means to be a professional. But I really wanted to get in some audience interaction at the start. So maybe I'll ask 1 or 2 questions, then I'll do the presentation, and we'll come back to the end.
Mukami, just really quickly, there will be a prize also for the quiz winner.
Thank you. But before I start, just to not assume that everyone knows who I am. Yeah, so Mukami Njeru is my name, also from the University of Nairobi, or should I say the University of Nairobi. Yeah, so I think when I joined the actual science class, I think the first ones were just graduating. So it's really amazing to be here at this event and for you guys to have real life actuaries in front of you. When we were going through this course, we just had to imagine what they were. We used to hear there's a guy called James Olubai who you had to try to message and you couldn't reach. So it's really not something you should take for granted. So I want to thank ASK, the IFoA. We've really come a long way in terms of our reach in this region, and also TASS. Hi, President Lorraine, and everyone here. So really, really grateful. Okay, so what is the first question? I think it must be.
So they need a code.
Yeah.
So this 27703961.
Okay. Do you know how many people are in the room? I think I see 73, 74, thank you. I think that's quite a good number. Oh, okay. So we'll wait to get to 100 and then we can start. Okay. The first question. What is the purpose of the Actuaries Code? The code is 2770. Okay, my apologies. Okay, clearly I did not practice this. 2770 3961. I saw a couple of people in, so I assumed that the code was there.
Yeah.
Right. Happy? Okay. The purpose of the Actuaries Code is to build and promote confidence in the work that actuaries and the actuarial profession do. 51. Okay, so let me step back and talk about this a bit. Based on the answers, I do see a lot of us are familiar with the Actuaries Code. And I'm wearing this pin, which the council members wear. It's a gold pin. Some of the volunteers have it. So A lot of the speakers today have talked about the technical acumen that you need to become an actuary. But really, how will you be successful, for 30 years, for 40 years? And if I look at the successful actuaries, you know what to expect of them consistently. And this is why we hold ourselves to a higher code, or higher purpose of values. And I'll share with you the tenets of the Actuaries Code when I come to the presentation. But basically, anybody can do R or Excel, but how do I trust that, Lorraine's model will be a suitable one to use to protect, pensioners' savings in the future? So it's really important that we hold ourselves to a high standard of work, and we promote confidence in the work that we do. The next question. I hope people are ready. I don't want to be accused. Okay, thankfully I didn't give this out, which is not one of the 6 principles. So the Actuaries Code has 6 principles. There are 4 options here. So which one is not one of the principles? Do actuaries have to act honestly and with integrity? Do we have to ensure that our professional judgment is not compromised? Do we need to speak up if we believe a course of action is unethical or unlawful? And do we have to work sustainably and consider the environmental impact of our work? Wow. Okay. We have some work to do. First, these six people. We need a sidebar on a light note. And this is something that's come up recently with our exams, right? Around, are people collaborating and sharing answers, for example, and it's one of the things that you'll see people get into disciplinary cases for. So the issue of acting honestly and with integrity is not only for actuaries, right? It's for us as citizens of this country and of the world. So that is a key expectation that we hold ourselves to. Yes, so that is definitely the first principle of the Actuaries Code. Definitely. The second one is a bit tricky, and I guess for people who haven't worked yet, it's not something that is clear. And I think, apologies. Hello, testing. Thank you. For you who haven't perhaps worked in practice yet, we talk about practice areas, right? So in reality, could I sit and do what my colleague in banking is doing? Maybe, because I did SIRA, so it would not be the right example. But if I've only done general insurance reserving, should I go do a report for someone's market risk assessment? Maybe, maybe not. But basically, we do need to ensure that we have the right competence to undertake a task, and that is one of the other tenets, so competence. But this one that is here around ensuring that our judgment is not compromised is even more nuanced and tricky. So most of us will end up working in insurance companies. My colleagues on the panel, Britam, Liberty, and so on. This is the same organization, and Zamara. Your clients pay you for advice, right? So, and this also happens with auditors. I currently work for an audit firm and other professional bodies. So the person paying you might want a certain answer, right? And your model has come up with an answer that they don't like, right? So as a professional and as an actuary who's bound by the Actuaries Code, you must actually ensure that your judgment is not compromised. If I step back and say, should I go do a valuation for my mother's pension, you should avoid situations where your judgment can be compromised. So I see, almost 50%, 30% of us thought that this is not a principle, but it is. And as you get into work and so on, you will see that there are so many situations where your judgment can be compromised. And this item of judgment is one of the things that people value actuaries for. So yes, you can do models, you can come up with formulas, but as you build in your knowledge, the ability to know whether the answer is 60 or 80 without even looking at the model is what an experienced actuary like Katina might be able to do, that you might have to go through all the answers to get to. But then to have that not be compromised and sort of pure in a way that can stand the test of time and can stand also independent peer review, so which is a key element of our work. So you will see actuaries internally, like the Britam actuary will have an independent actuary who will come and look at the work is done and say, okay, it actually, two actuaries can get to the same answer. So this is quite a strong pillar of the Actuaries Code, right? And it's something you can also do for each other, like hold each other accountable. Right. This number 3, speak up if you believe a course of action is unethical or unlawful. I think this can be nuanced in different cultures, and I know right now I do a lot of work in West Africa, and it's very hierarchical. So it's very hard to challenge someone who is senior and so on and so forth. But this is so key. So for example, if I'm doing an exam and I see my colleague cheating, should I report it, And I think those are some of the things you might face. And I think the IFoA, the profession requires that we actually hold this and speak up. And we actually had to add this as a 6th principle because of something one of the panelists said, like actuaries are quiet. Yeah, so they might see something, and this is actually, it's so prevalent in companies. You see something, the actuaries knows that something is wrong, but they didn't say anything, right? So we now expect that we speak up, and I think, I don't need to tell the current generation that we're really proud of you with all the way you sort of try to take on the government. I know it's a tricky situation, but like the speaking up if you believe a course of action is unethical or unlawful, I think in the current, let me say, generation, I think it's something easier for you to do. And I think, yeah, it's definitely part of the Actuaries Code. Now, this last one is not in the Actuaries Code, but who's to say that it won't get there? Sustainability is a key item. So this is something that is implicit, that we are trying to put into actuarial work, but it's not currently in the Actuaries Code. Yeah, and there are a lot of things that are implied by the Actuaries Code but are not listed. But as I said, I'll come back to the 6 principles in a summary, but that's one of the ones that is not currently a principle. The prize, guys, remember there's a prize, right? 3rd question. I'm really bad at this, Toby. Okay, it's coming up. This is the same question. Okay, Actuary X joins a discussion on social media in which they speak disparagingly about a colleague. Which principle of the code is compromised? Yeah. So communication, members must communicate appropriately. Integrity, members must act honestly and with integrity. Speaking up, members should voice if they believe a course of action is unethical or unlawful, or compliance. Members must comply with all the relevant regulations. Okay, I know people want to justify their answers. Right. So most people thought it was compliance. Interesting. So just for context, so you go on Twitter and then you see someone saying something about someone else. And to be honest, we've had such issues between 2 actuaries where they don't agree, right? And then it's actually been challenged. So the answer is integrity. So I think speaking disparagingly about a colleague is perhaps not acting in the best interest of the colleague. Definitely, if you have, as a professional, if you have something against somebody or you have a different point of view, the idea should be to always, mutually discuss with that person first off. So again, 4 of the principles here. A lot of people thought it was compliance. I don't know why. Maybe communication could be one that you thought is the right thing, because this could be deemed as inappropriate communication. So I think it's a question that, perhaps the first one I could give it a pass, because you might actually have a point that you want to bring up to the other actuary, but you didn't communicate appropriately. But I think generally it's advisable to stay away from social media, right, in terms of having such discussions. Thanks for your participation. Number 5 out of 6 is coming up. Who does the Actuaries Code apply to? Does it apply to fellows? Does it apply to associates? I know we have chartered actuarial analysts here, which is an interesting one to have here. Or does it apply to everyone? So I hope we all get this. Okay, yay. Very good, guys. So yeah, it applies to everyone. So everyone who's joined the IFoA, you should definitely have access to this, right? And then we'll talk about it a bit more. So let's go to the last question. Which of the following statements is true? Okay, this is an interesting one. Do the principles and amplifications in the code provide non-mandatory guidance? Should actuaries comply with the principles, but the amplifications are not mandatory? So when you look at the Actuaries Code under integrity, you'll see sub-bullets, right? Those are the amplifications. Should they comply with both? Oh, wow, okay. You see, I knew that this session, the people were on top of it. So great. We must comply with everything. And that's why if you look at the current discussions right now, okay. Let's see. Is that Wambui who was Wamagata? Oh, wow. That means she must have got all of them, right? Yeah, very good. Okay, so thank you guys for helping me with my presentation. I was typing myself, and that was almost 20 minutes. But I think in conclusion, I do want to say professionalism is the key to success in the workplace. It's very important. It enhances your credibility. It builds trust, and it fosters, a positive work environment, especially with your colleagues, with the people who will learn from you, with the people who will rely on your work, right? So. Of course, we know that professionalism is not only for the actuarial field, but basically it means that you have specialized skills, which we do. it means that these skills were acquired over a long period of learning, which you have, or which you will achieve. You're in a position where you have more knowledge than your clients, and you're in a position of power, to be honest, and with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah. Also, a lot of the times, professionalism or professions are legal, right? So there are ramifications. So as I said, it's very important to apply the Actuaries Code, because if you don't and you issue reports that end up causing financial loss, you could actually be sued, right? Or you could end up being fined, especially by your profession. So it's actually very important, and it's often identified by a protected term. So you will see in the next couple of weeks, Chartered Actuary will come out as a brand, and it's something we're trying to uphold to enable that, anyone can call themselves an actuary, but a chartered actuary is someone you can rely on, right? The one thing I also wanted to bring out is about ethics. So doing the right thing, doing what ought to be done even if people are not looking, right? And that's really what we expect of a professional. So a lot of people do things for show, but the professionalism standards we're putting in place apply to you whether or not someone is looking, right? And it's for you to be a role model. Irene told us there are 100,000 actuaries in the world. So we do expect that you uphold the principles of the code, and you do what is right and what ought to be done even if it's unsaid. Yeah. So I think for me personally, this has been something that has really supported me throughout my whole career, and it's something that when I see models in my fellow actuaries, even in everyone else who supports the IFoA, it just encourages me that I'm in the right place and in the right profession. A lot of this has been said, and perhaps what I wanted to bring out is what is important for you as a student. You should be reliable, you should be respectful, you should be competent, and you should also appear appropriately dressed. So that's one that people don't always talk about, but it's a big part of professionalism. The Actuaries Code, the 6 principles that I mentioned. So these are listed here. I think the only one that we didn't touch about is compliance, but that goes without saying that we must comply with all the professional regulations. What can you prioritize as a student so that you're ready for this when you come to the workplace? Proper communication. So say what you mean what you say, be clear, be concise, maintain body language, good body language, good eye contact, all that. Time management is a key one, especially for us African timers. I think people really value when you respect their time. So that's something that you can already build to become and build your professionalism. So ethical behavior, I'll really emphasize this as you go through your exam, as you go through your studies. Lucy mentioned Professor Weke, advocating for her with boards, with clients. That comes with him observing your behavior and how you conduct yourself as a student, right? So these things carry through all through life. Manage your formal relationships well, handle conflicts respectfully, and really build your network, right? That's actually something that we expect of a professional. And I think for me, last but not least, is continuous improvement. What I really love about the actuarial profession is that you don't arrive. So you qualify, and then you start teaching others. You start going into the international actuarial associations. There's always more. And the lifelong learning element of the actuarial profession, you always have to do your CPD, your PPD. You always have to be receptive to feedback and accept the fact that it's very true what the panelists said. Right now, you probably can do my work 10 times faster than me because of the tools that you have. So I have to be open to feedback and receptive to improvement, right? And then set your goals and achieve them, right? So we talked about the average qualification time, people saying 10 years. I mean, I qualified in I think 5, but set your goals and achieve them. And let's take this profession forward. I'm really excited for the future, looking at the room. And we also look forward to when you come on this stage and when you take us further forward, right? So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you very much. Open the floor for questions, if any, but handing back over to Toby and Irene. Thanks.
Did you hear that? No. Yes. Look, basically, I just wanted to say thank you for letting us be here. And I hope we have imparted some knowledge in terms of the actuarial profession, inspired you a bit with the people that you've seen on stage today and answered your questions. And I hope to hear great things from you. As Mukami said, hopefully to see some of you up on the stage in the next couple of decades to say the same thing to the next generation of actuaries. So thank you. And to close the event, I would love to have ASSK President Rosalind to say a few words. Or another member of ASSK to want to close the event?
A round of applause for them. Before I close the event, I'll welcome Prof to give the final remarks, then I think we'll close. So, Prof.
Okay, thank you. The President of IFoA and team, the local organizing committee, the leadership of ASK and TASS, the students, good evening. Good evening once again. Okay. It's a pleasure to have had our great team today, and I'm certainly sure that we have learned a lot from what was going on. And I was really impressed during the question time that it actually made you to be very active. Apparently, I realized that ladies are quite very sharp, and I think they have carried the day. So we need to give them a round of applause. For the gents, I think there's always another time. I was seated next to one who was just scoring zeros. In that environment, not the immediate one to me, But I was just hearing that, nimehata. I was just hearing anasema nimehata. So I don't know. I was asking what kuhata is. Then I was told that he was just failing. And that's why at one time I wanted to know how many could scored 0. Because, you know, there were quite a series of questions. But if you come out with 0, then it means that you need to actually improve heavily. So I think the message I'll also carry back to my colleagues, lecturers, is that we need to up the game in terms of the way the students are gaining knowledge in class, but now also applying on simple quizzes. It's a problem. So I think largely they rely on online. So they get the answer and forget. But it's a lesson. We have just had the last quizzes from our able lady actuary. I may not be knowing her name when she began, I wasn't here, but I'm impressed that she works with, is it PwC? Yeah, in one of the countries in West Africa there. The president here, I think you can just stand up and wave. You know, sometimes these guys having such an amazing organization is really very, very important. The leadership of TASS, are you present here? You can just also stand up and wave. I know your fellow colleague will come here and perhaps acknowledge you. But let's